Is there such a thing as following in family culture or following in family trade? Where one family, it's a group of doctors, the other family, it's a group of nurses, the other family, it's a group of teachers, and in your case, a group of entrepreneurs. Is that a thing that a young person could actually look at and say, what is it that my family is good at, and can I follow into that?
Absolutely. In my case, for sure. So of course, to say just because the people above you didn't do it, it doesn't mean you'll never go into it. So if you're the first entrepreneur, first gen, somebody's got to start it. It's definitely not a limitation. But without a doubt, when you're sitting around and you're seeing your grandfather at the age of 85 still working every single day, 7 a.m, 7 o'clock at night, caring about his work, you see there's a certain expectation and a certain way of dealing with things that gets passed on to you naturally. So for me personally, I was just wired in a way that everybody in my family valued education and, gaining information and skill. What you do in terms of law, entrepreneurship, whatever it is, you do it, but you care about your work, you look after your family, and you make sure that you do things properly. There's a family name that you have, and you make sure that you look after that. And I just always naturally felt that way. The fact that I ended up also being a fourth generation attorney wasn't necessarily planned, but I definitely think from a young age, when you see what people do and the importance that you put into the discipline of your craft, I think it's something that can put you in good stead. For me, there's no doubt. And I would be shocked if there isn't a fifth generation after this that follows in the footsteps.
You reckon? But you've started now a cycle where there's entrepreneurship in the mix. How did you pivot from being an attorney, being in love with the law, being in love with the rules, to then jumping in to say, I'm getting into business and I'm going to become an entrepreneur? That link, for a lot of people, especially people that are academics, which I think law is, don't easily now pivot into a different industry like entrepreneurship.
Absolutely. So I think the one thing is a lot of people think if you're working at a corporate or you're an attorney or you're an engineer or you're a doctor, whatever it is, that's your pursuit, that's your profession, that's what you do. I think there's a lot of people in these industries that are entrepreneurial by nature. And I think that whether you go and you start your own business and you do a startup and you head it up, or you just bring that into what you do, you bring your entrepreneurship into business, into your law firm, whatever it is super important. So I knew always, I didn't, when I was drafting a contract for a client, I wasn't asking them questions on which clause should we put, how should we define this. I was asking, what does your business do? How do you make money? What are we trying to protect? What is your biggest risk in your business? My questions were always more focused at the client's business. Whereas I noticed other attorneys were like, okay, so I know I need to go and draft a shareholders agreement. So how many shares are in the company? What's the value? I came more, how did you value your company? That's amazing. Tell me about your story. What do you sell? How are you different to your competitor? So I knew I always had that, which put me in good stead in the legal profession. But I always felt that I had like sort of an underlying passion to do it myself. I watched all these people. I sat at the table. I drafted them a contract, and then they'd sign the contract and I wouldn't see them again. And I'd be like, what happened with that acquisition? I watched a big company go and buy this small mom and pop store to incorporate and absorb. What happened afterwards? I drafted the contract, but I didn't see what happened 2 years later.
Sure.
And it always left me wondering, whereas some other attorneys were like, Josh, you've done it. You closed the file, you billed your fees. Why are you asking me that? So I always had that passion, and I think it's something that I brought across. I think if you've got an entrepreneurial spirit or not. And some people have it and they're just sort of born with it, and others have to just nurture and sort of let it evolve. But yeah, I think too often people think that if I'm an attorney, I'm a lawyer, I need to do my years, I need to study 6 years, then do my 2 years articles and whatever. Yeah. If you know you got the passion, don't limit yourself. Do it on the side, bring it into law, follow that pursuit. So that's something I always kept alive. I knew I had it, I kept it alive, and eventually I brought it into SourceFin, and it's been incredible. And then it's about finding like-minded people. That's the next step that you have to do.
Sure. So we're building a case here towards SourceFin, right? So, and what I'm hearing from your story is that it's building its case on its own, in the sense that you became an attorney, and then now you're drafting contracts for business people, and you were sitting around the table seeing how they are doing their business, or you didn't see it afterwards, but you would understand what their business is about. Could that be the reason that you ended up being CEO of SourceFin and doing the work that you're doing?
For sure. I think it was also that problem-solving ability. So as a businessman or an entrepreneur, what you're trying to do fundamentally in a business is you're trying to solve problems for customers. You're identifying a problem in the marketplace and you're saying, how do we solve it? As an attorney, you're actually doing the same thing. You've got two parties sitting around the table. The problem is, number one, they've got to resolve some of the issues that they haven't even thought about, that you need to think about for them. Number two, they need a contract, or they need a will, or they need whatever it is. So for me, it was always, I'm solving a problem. It's not, I'm just drafting you a MOR. I'm literally solving your problem. And for me, that was the step towards why I wasn't too nervous for entrepreneurship. I saw it as the same thing. The business case was, there's a problem that exists in the market. There's a lack of funding in a certain area. Just like I would have done as an attorney, how do I go about doing it? What do I need to do? I need to understand my customer, and I need to bring them a solution. And for me, if you can marry that with being client-centric, making sure that whoever your client is, whether it's your client and you're a lawyer, whether it's your client and you're a funder, are you looking after their fundamental needs? And can you do it in a way that has a use case and that you can make money off? The answer is yes. Then you've got yourself a business. And that's what I always thought about when I moved across is I'm not too scared. It's not going from law to, speaking a foreign language. It's using those skills just in a different way.
Where did you learn that? The problem solving ability, or the ability to pick up and understand that it's not even about law or medicine or entrepreneurship. It's about problem solving. Who taught you that?
So I'll tell you, the most important thing in my whole life that's guided me to where I am is the mentors that I've had mentorship. So from a young age, growing up, having the parents and grandparents I've had, but then moving professionally, most importantly, I've been so blessed that the people that I've had have mentored me. So what's great about being a lawyer is your first 2 years, you're useless. You're making photocopies, you bringing waters and coffees.
Is that before articles or during articles?
During articles.
Yeah.
As much as you might think you Harvey Specter or Mark Ross from Suits, you're literally useless for 2 years. But you have to be a sponge. That's the truth. And I knew that from day one. My mentor that I had in my first year said to me, anything you think you know, cases you learned, leave that at the door. What you're doing is you're going to sponge off me. You're going to sit with me in every single meeting, and you're going to learn. And I had that approach. I was just hungry to learn. When I finished with him, I went to another partner and said, do you have any work I can help you with? My boss went home at 7. I went at 8 o'clock to the guy that works till 10 and said, what do you need help with? And same thing, the next year I knew I wanted to move from litigation, which is more to do with cases and arguing, into commercial, because I knew I had that business wrong. They told me you can't come into commercial. Candidate attorneys, clerks don't do commercial. Said, cool, I'll wait my time. In a year's time, I'll prove myself. Moved up into that division. And once again, just wanted to prove myself. And I had an incredible mentor that taught me from the start that your job is, you have to remember your client has one lawyer. You might have 500 different clients, but to your one client, you're their only lawyer. So make them feel like that from the start and solve whatever problems they have. There's nothing we can't do if we're solving their issues and making them happy. And from that stage, I learned off these mentors. I was very lucky also. Once I left law, I had another incredible mentor that I've worked off, and he's taught me exactly how to take a business, which he's done himself, from a 1-man or 2-person show into a giant. And that's exactly what we're doing here. So for me, without that mentorship, I don't know if I'd ever get there. And I've just been incredibly lucky. And I think I would say you have to value that mentorship above anything else. Too often people are trying to think, how do I make money? How do I quickly scale my startup? How do I sell my startup? Just take it easy. Take a deep breath, learn, build. You'll make mistakes, see the positives. And so for me, mentorship is so important. And it's something that I want to also make sure we pass down at Sourcebin.